Hey guys, I wanted to make a video on Battlefield 5 Firestorm as that is definitely next up on our list of games to play. I just got done with a little Titanfall 2 and as you already know, we've been pretty into Apex recently. However, since I first sunk 1,000+ hours into PUBG, I've been thinking if there is any game that already had the perfect assets or was the perfect platform to make a realistic BR shooter, it was Battlefield. In fact, back when I got my very first PC, if I could pick only one game franchise or series to play for the rest of time, it hands down would have been Battlefield. I've been playing Battlefield since 1942, and no, not the year, but the game 1942, which released in 2002. I'm not even sure you can say you've actually played Battlefield if you haven't loaded up Operation Market Garden on LAN with 64 bots on the Axis team and drove back and forth on the bridge in a Jeep plowing through the endless wave of soldiers. Those were the golden days, and they really only got better with Vietnam, BF2, and 2142. Now BF3, along with the Bad Companies and Battlefield 4, weren't bad by any means, but they started to mark a shift in the direction of the games. Nonetheless, they were still innovative and a blast to play. You could just see them starting to contract the early stages of consolitis. Once a game contracts consolitis, it's all downhill from there. Anyway, all that to say, I'm a die-hard Battlefield fan. I would like more than anything for their Battle Royale to succeed, and I've been waiting for this moment for a long time now. I'm rooting for them, but that doesn't mean I'm going into this blind. I certainly want to manage expectations. With that out of the way though, I'm going to go over 5 things that worry me about Firestorm, and the last point is probably the most concerning of all, but first we'll hit on mechanical or design flaws. By the way, Firestorm releases in just a few hours, Monday, March 25th at 2 a.m. Pacific time. Because I have not played it yet, nor do I want to steal any footage, I will be showing some classic Battlefield 5 gameplay, not Firestorm. Alright, the first 3 are potential design flaws that I'm going to fly over, with the first being the looting mechanic, which comes with both some good and some bad. For instance, I like that they are at least trying something new with having all your gear or loot in the bottom right of the UI without the need to spend time in menus. If they manage to somehow polish that aspect, I think it could help a lot with just the overall flow and immersion of the game, spending less time in windows and more time in the actual world. Now, where that is concerning is because a menu is almost essential for looting your kills in a game like this. Without a loot box or bag or player crate spawning after a kill, the loot just explodes everywhere on the ground, and without a proximity loot menu, you're left scrambling through it all, which appears to be a rough experience since the item collusion doesn't always function properly and you're left with piles of loot inside each other. The biggest downside is that you have to load every weapon you pick up, so if you're trying to quick grab some meds and accidentally swap guns in the heat of battle, you have to load the new gun, and then if you swap back to the gun you actually meant to have, then you have to reload that one again too. Not a very good mechanic to see, but they're aware of the fact that looting is a problem and are likely going to work on polishing it. I personally wouldn't mind another mini loot window for proximity items that you can toggle on and off that's next to or above the current inventory UI. Okay, second is the armor. This is somewhat similar to Blackout's armor, but in Firestorm, you start with a level 1 vest. There are also level 2 and level 3 vests that can be found around the map or from drops. Now these vests give you the ability to put on armor plates, and each plate is worth an additional 50 health. So you start with 150 base health, plus the ability to apply 1 armor plate to your level 1 vest, which would give you a total of 200 hit points at the start of the game. The armor plates are also found around the map, by the way. Think body shields and shield cells in Apex. The armor plates are basically shield cells. Now, as I'm sure you figured out, finding a level 2 vest will give you another slot for a plate, which would bring you up to 250 HP, and finally a level 3 vest would give you a max of 300 HP with 3 armor plates, plus your 150 base health. My concern is that this is a pretty extensive time to kill for a Battlefield game, and it leaves a lot of room for RNG to heavily sway the advantage in one player's direction or another. And I understand that's just part of the battle royales, but I personally would have rather they ditched the vests and just had the armor plates act like shields from Fortnite. Everyone can collect the plates and apply the same amount without needing to get lucky and find a better vest. See, I'm okay with it in Apex because there's a color indicator when you hit another player, so you're able to immediately determine if you're going to win that fight or if you need to play a little differently to balance the odds. But in Battlefield, you will have no idea how much more armor the other player has than you. Again, at least from what I can tell. Maybe the vest will be so visually different that it'll be obvious. We'll just have to wait and see. This could all turn out to be a non-issue. Maybe they've balanced it really well, but it's one of the areas of concern that I'll be watching closely. Last game mechanic that scares me is the vehicles. Again though, with only watching a couple hours of gameplay and developer posts, this could also turn out to be a well-balanced addition, but I personally have never been a huge fan of the balance of vehicles in multiplayer Battlefield. I know that's one of their pride and joys, maps big enough for vehicular war alongside infantry, but in an already overly RNG-based game mode, this could be frustrating. The important thing is just that there is always a counterplay available. Aside from having anti-vehicle weapons, the best balance I can think of is having terrain that restricts their use. So if you're a team being chased by a tank, one of your options would be to play a part of the map that isn't as accessible or has an easily defensible choke point for vehicles. Anyway, there's 17 vehicles on launch. I'm pumped to see how that all plays out. Hopefully the risk to reward balance makes it all work. I know to access some of the better vehicle spawns, you have to complete objectives that are very dangerous. Alright, now we get into the juicy stuff. If you haven't seen this fine print yet, Battlefield revealed that Duos and Firestorm will be a limited time mode. This has baffled everyone. Duos in BR is one of the best and definitely one of the most competition-friendly modes. Why on earth they would choose to let us get a taste of it but only make it limited time is beyond me. I'm not going to go into details of the roadmap they just released for the core game, but the roadmap is equally baffling, and things like this are starting to make everyone, most of all the big Battlefield content creators, feel like the developers are 100% disconnected from their community at this point. Now, everything I listed before are concerns, but they're not going to stop me from trying it out. They may honestly amount to nothing more than just my concerns after I try the game and find it to be a pleasantly polished experience. Who really knows at this point? I've honestly enjoyed the vanilla Battlefield 5 experience more than I thought I would, and maybe Firestorm will be the same way. But here's the issue that has worried me the most. I mentioned I watch hours of gameplay, and that's because a lot of the big Battlefield players or content creators were treated to an hour and a half of playtime at an EA Game Changers event, and after watching tons of their footage and reviews, they all use terminology like, "I quite enjoyed it," or "it was a good time." But literally none of them sounded remotely excited or blown away by it. And dude, most of the past initial Battle Royale experiences like PUBG and Apex Legends left me freaking out with how wild and thrilling the ride was. I mean, the latest Apex Legends was just a party and a half at launch. You're literally respawning your teammates back into the middle of the game with nothing but the clothes on their body. Meanwhile, you've got 5 teams all in one massive battle around you in Market Skulltown with airstrikes and explosions and laser beams flying everywhere like it's the Clone Wars. But with Firestorm, they're saying they quite enjoyed it. And maybe that's just strictly the personality of the players I watched, but even if they're monotone, they'd still rave about a crazy or intense experience they had, and I'm just not seeing it. That's legitimately what concerns me the most. If playing it in such a short amount of time that you can't possibly get bored, and yet you already almost sound bored, I don't know, that worries me about the longevity of this game. I personally couldn't help but notice that while trying to get myself excited for Firestorm through other people, there just wasn't as much hype as I expected to see. Again, I really want this to succeed. I would love if Firestorm got a bunch of new eyes on Battlefield and sparked new growth in the community, but it's going to have to be something really special to survive behind a hefty paywall in an increasingly free-to-play world. I mean, that's another point I could have added to this video, their decision to add this to pay-to-play instead of a standalone free-to-play mode, which could have seen a lot more growth and brought in a lot more potential future Battlefield customers. But oh well. Given the release tomorrow, something's gonna happen and we're just gonna have to wait and see what that something is. Can't wait to try it out for myself though. I will definitely let you guys know what I think, but until then, I will see you on the battlefield.